This is an attempt to create a recording of what I hope to accomplish tonight at the meeting of the Village of Ada Council. They are swearing in new people. I want to go over the old people and the issues that I had in 2025. The mayor, David Redderer. Well, actually, I got a picture of him. This is the first meeting I watched. That's the mayor, if I remember correctly. His term ends in 2 years, so he's going to be still around. Mr. E Strike or A Strike, I'm not exactly sure how they pronounce it. I've heard it a few times, but I don't remember right now. He is the person that I noticed had a unique water usage report for 2024, which I'll go into later. Linda Mason, she's not changing, she's sticking around. Although I have added her in emails I sent to everybody that was elected, I do not believe she ever replied to me in an email. But her email's there. Sean Beck. Now, it says here 12/31/25, but he was reelected, so I intend to see him there. If I remember right, he's one of 2 Democrats on the council. Bob Simmons. Now, I have talked to him. He is no longer going to be there because I don't think he ran again. I think the other person that ran again was Jason Campbell, but I'm not 100% sure. One of these 2 is leaving. I'm pretty sure it's Mr. Simmons. Now, the only thing that's was left undone in 2025 with Mr. Simmons is that I had asked him a question regarding bids for work for the village. Now, the policy on how they do it is the same thing that I've seen in dozens of villages and small towns, and it goes back to when I was a kid in the 70s. If they had something they needed done, they would post a request for bids in a newspaper. The Village of Ada uses the Kenton Times. But I had sent him a question because with print media disappearing, do they really use the Kenton Times? I didn't phrase it like that. I believe my question was, do we even know the people that won the bid even subscribe to the Kenton Times? So I am still unsure exactly what happens. I mean, it is possible that they don't do any communications and they just post an ad for bids and contractors keep an eye on Kenton Times, but somehow I feel it doesn't work that way. I have no proof that it goes something funky or some sort of conspiracy. I just know that what's the policy that I have seen written does not seem likely because, I mean, newspapers are hardly used at all. Again, Jason Campbell, I think he was on reelected. I do not remember any email communications between me and him. Sheila Corcel, I've mispronounced names often, even when I've heard them several times. I can apologize, but I'll probably keep doing it. Now, I've had some communications with her, both as a village councilor and as the head of the she's the Democratic chair of Hardin County. Now, the administrative staff, as far as I know, there's no changes. Amanda Sears. Amanda Sears, one of her emails has the most outrageous story I received. It was incredibly bizarre. I'm going to highlight it if I have time to highlight it. Chief of Police, Chief Cooper, I've had some communications back and forth with him, but never any problems or concerns with anything. Patty Navin, now she is the one that's provided me water consumption reports for 2024. She helped me analyze and understand those reports. She also gave me the total water revenue for 2024, which helped me with the ordinances. I've had some communications with Michelle Chambers. She's the zoning inspector. Most of my communications with her were trying to verify information that I had received. And that's the biggest problem I have. I asked things for proof, for paperwork, things like that, and I received documents that I cannot prove as false, but I cannot prove as true either. For example, if I ask for a report or something about a meeting that happened a year and a half ago, I would get a document that was dated the day I requested it. And there was never any verifiable information. I will go to in detail when I talk about Mr. Eastrike and his water in 2024. I have a new email sent out to Mr. Eichmann, Clayton Eichmann. I hear that he's also a police officer. There was a new memo sent out talking about sidewalks, and I'm not going to get into it now, but I did send out an email regarding sidewalks. Now, this is the person that piques my interest. It piqued my interest all the way back to him in January of last year. I even said it, and it hasn't changed. Now, I was unable to find this video. I know I have it somewhere, but I couldn't find it. But during this meeting that I recorded, I would say that the vast majority of her time was sitting there watching her phone. I mean, she was there, but she wasn't a participant that I remember in this meeting. Now, since then, I've had interactions with her. Matter of fact, she's the one that I have the most difficulty trying to understand or trying to express what I feel is a lack of transparency and pointing out shortcomings that her documents that she's provided I cannot prove to be truthful, and how to change it so that nobody can ever have that problem again. In other words, if a committee holds a meeting, there should be a recording of that meeting with the date, time stamp, and it should be around. I'm not saying that they have to post it publicly, but if somebody questions whether a meeting occurred, they should have a video to show that it occurred. Well, now I'm going to go into a brief mention. Well, I wanted to show here this is not all of them. I haven't put them all in here. But as you can see, oh, Jamie, that was the person. Oh, Jamie. Let me look it up. Jamie Hall. Okay, I had the name right. He gave me a lovely tour. Took tour of the village offices. He spent an hour explaining a lot of things to me. He was kind and forthright. We had jumped off on the wrong foot because I didn't understand things, and I thought they were misrepresenting it. But he took a long time, went over a lot of things, and helped out a bunch. He's no longer there. Amanda Sears took his place. But as you can tell, I've got probably over 100 communications back and forth, and these aren't all of them. There's a couple new ones. Now, this is the one I talked about. This talks about Mr. Eastrike's water. When I went and reviewed, and you can search and find videos on this. If you can't, I will try to find them myself and repost them. But I discovered that Mr. Eastrike had missing months of water usage. And after a lot of back and forth with 2 or 3 people, it was shown and proven that for 6 months he was billed the minimum, is the claim. The usage shows 6 months of usage. That's what it shows. When I first looked into it, I thought it was 6 months that he wasn't there. And They did not say, no, that's not the case. Because if he wasn't there, he wasn't supposed to be a councilman. You have to reside in the where you live in the village to be a councilman. But they came back, both Amanda and another one, saying that no, he was here. It was just minimum usage. Now, I received paperwork, or I received a file that suggests there was repair done, but that only covered around 2 months of it, not a whole 6 months. And that also was a document created on the day I asked for it, not a document or two documents from 2024 showing when a work order was created, when it was closed, no orders of parts. There was a couple names of somebody that worked on it, but there's no way to prove that it wasn't entered in on the day that they sent the document to me. In other words, it could be true, parts could have been replaced, or it could be that he didn't have to pay for his water usage for 6 months. He only had to pay the minimum. Well, Ms. Sears came up with a nifty idea that it was actually monitoring usage. And let me see here if this, I think I have to start at the top. Yeah, this is going back and forth. I'm talking about definitely not being correct. I find it tired of pointing out. Hang on a second, I'm kind of rambling. Okay, they're talking about the creation date, the day I received it, and here's what she says. At the time of the stop meter reading was conducted by a meter reader walking past each reader and would ding when the meter's out. That reading was then uploaded into our billing system. Because Mr. Eastreich regularly had low usage, the fact that his use was zero did not register as anything abnormal on our monthly reviews. It is my understanding that we waited to change the meter because we did not have the inventory on those meters available, knowing that they were starting our meter replacement project. Regularly low usage indicating zero. I did not like that. I went here. You acknowledge the fact that usage was zero, did not register as anything abnormal, is admitting that no one was there to use the water. Again, that's what I originally thought. No, that's not use the water. And here I get a little sarcastic. So usage of zero, no water passing through a pot is not considered abnormal. That means no bathing, no bathroom, no washing clothes. Can you care to explain? And here's where she leans into it. Our reading devices only pick up once the dial is turned to the next whole number. So, for example, when your meter is installed, it starts at zero. We don't bill till it hits one. So, somebody uses point of parent, it's not going to be one. So, let's say his meter was 157. I'm just picking a number. And next meter reading, he'd only use 0.65 units. He would be billed for zero usage. And he wouldn't be billed for that unit at 158. Now, this shows the person around that they had no idea of the physics of water. Not a lick. Because this is absolutely crazy. And I tell Amanda that. No, Amanda, that does not make sense. My guess is that you have no clue on what the volume of water used in everyday appliances and plumbing. And here I give an example. The average toilet uses 3 gallons of water per flush. Now, newer toilets are more economical. It's more like an old one. At least that's the way I was learned. I think I researched it, and the sums I found for sale were like 2.5, 2.7. But the point is this. Assume that he and his wife only flush the toilet twice every day. And then I do the math. 4 times 3 is 12. 12 times 30, that's for a month, 30 days, is 360 gallons. which is 0.4813 units of water. And here's where I lay it thick. Do I want to do the math on an average shower or the average washer? You want to know the average amount of water that evaporates in a water heater? Basically, I'm pointing out that the 0.65 possibility was absolutely ridiculous. There's at least two people there, supposedly. So they would have used more than 2 units of water. So there was not times where there was just barely usage unless they weren't there. And again, that goes back to the first problem. If they weren't there, he shouldn't have been a council member anymore. If he was there, why isn't he paying for his water? Again, numbers do not lie, people do. And here she tries to backtrack. And she goes back to, oh no, it was just being billed a minimum because that's what we do when we do it. So she didn't even acknowledge how outrageous her claim was. And I sent that in. I made a report of that and gave it to every single member that's elected. And I was asking what they were going to do about it. She made an outrageous lie. It's obvious, but they didn't do a thing. So, the run-ins I've had with Jane Napier is over this here. Codified Ordinances of Ada, Ohio. Now, I've not read the entire thing, but I've read a lot of it and knows that it could be vastly simplified. The way they bill the water, and this is how I got involved, is because when I started reading the ordinances on the water, I realized that over the past 2 to 3 decades, they had implemented a system that allowed heavy volume users, businesses, industry, and they did a formula so that they ended up paying less per unit of water. Now, I saw it just in the math of the formula. Just looking at it, I immediately saw that businesses were getting preferential treatment. And there's other ordinances. I made videos about in detail the water ordinance, going through it, where the administrator can give a discount, they can give things. They can't give discounts to a resident, but a business can have their water bill, you can get help with their water bill in a couple of ways. I'm not going to search into it to show it. All right. So there's a problem with the water ordinance. In my opinion, residents shouldn't help pay for businesses. And that is why I use a water consumption report. And this is it in a nutshell. They said that no, that's not true. I don't understand the math. So, after a lot of back and forth, I got the exact number of water that was used by people who pay for water. All of them. It took a while back and forth to find out what business offices or what village offices don't pay for the water. And then I got the revenue collected. Now, the revenue collected is all the money that people spent on water that was sent to the village. So, if you take all the money that was spent and then you divide it by all the water that was used, you get what would have been a flat rate. So much per unit of water. And I started to show them by going through the consumption report exactly how most people would have spent less if everybody had paid the same. To this day, they refuse to acknowledge that that statement is correct and accurate. I am hoping with the new bunch that changes. The second thing I've had problems with the ordinances is regarding alcohol permits in the town. like I said, I was reading it across it. Well, it's kind of odd. I was talking to somebody, and we talked about distances from a church, and then I looked in and I reread some parts of the Ohio Revised Code, and then I was looking in the codified ordinances these, and I saw that the village of Ada had, I believe it was identical ordinance that was the state law, the Ohio Revised Code. And I asked, why is that here? The state already does that. Why is it duplicated? Now, I posed a theory, and it's because I've heard it before, and I've experienced a bizarre thing with another. Well, this was a township, not a village. But my concern was this: the goal of the ordinance and the law is, well, during when they ended prohibition, there were still a lot of groups that wanted to limit alcohol where they lived. So they put in a method where that if you're within so many feet of a church, a school, etc., they could that entity, the church or school, can ask that this be reviewed and ask that they don't do that. Now I was looked into it, and there was a couple things. One, there's no in the law or the ordinance to show that they even bothered to notify the church. There's no requirement there at all. You take it on faith that the person doing the permit process did in fact notify the people they're supposed to. But there's no way to prove that, not in the state or in the local ordinances. But the reason I was concerned that it was duplicated was whether or not there were certain people they didn't want to sell alcohol in the village. Now, when I say it like that, I am talking about checking to see whether or not there's a policy of discrimination. Now, you can't ask them that. They'll just sit there and say, nope, that's not what it's there for. Well, then what's it there for? And then there was back and forth about it being necessary. That's when Ms. Napier said there was a meeting, and but couldn't prove it with any dated material from the date of that meeting, like a recording. At any rate, I even reached out because I drafted, and it was a very rough draft, to get a local issue on the ballot to get rid of the alcohol clause, because, like I said, it's a duplicate what's in the Ohio Revised Code. It's not needed. It serves no purpose. And I wrote it out exactly as I thought it was supposed to be. Now, if I got this correctly, Ms. Napier is responsible for proofing or proofreading or agreeing to the text of the referendum so it can be put on the ballot. Well, she looked at it and refused to do anything with it at all. And I even complained to the state, and I was told months ago that they'd get back to me, but they never did. And I am beginning to wonder if there's a systemic problem with groups ensuring that certain individuals' voices are no longer heard. Yeah, I'm talking about people knowingly ignoring the law or knowingly telling things that aren't true. Now, the only thing I saw that wasn't true was that story of Amanda Sears saying that Mr. Easterreich didn't use much water. And when they realized that the physics didn't, or I guess reality proved that that was crazy, they backtracked on that. Good news is he's no longer a council member, so hopefully he won't get any special water deals or any further. And I don't know if they're going to give me the same information for 2025. I hope so, because I want to give people updates on how much they could be paying instead of what they are paying. So, like I said, the concern I have is whether or not there's discrimination. Now, I don't know if there is. Now, there's a couple things I've noticed. A lot of politicians in this area, when they have group photos of the places we've been, there seems to be a lack of diversity. And that's kind of the cornerstone of what I think that liquor ordinance is about. I mean, it may not be. Like I said, I can't prove a single thing. I only can speculate that it could be because other townships, villages, cities have done that. They tweak an ordinance or they use an ordinance to discriminate. Now, I don't know if that is the purpose of the ordinance in here, but I cannot find any valid reason for it. And the case that they said that did occur, they couldn't prove the meeting existed. Like I said, they claim they had a meeting, but they have nothing to show that that's dated the time of the meeting. A recording of the meeting. Well, there's a lot of things they could do to prove people were there having a meeting, but like I said, there was no recording. Now, if my crazy thinking is accurate, and there might be a problem with racism, I got a book I checked out, and that's not it. Apparently, it timed out. Is it going to let me go back to it? No, it's going to make me log in. Here we go. Okay. There it is. I wish I would have seen this earlier. I don't know when it arrived there. But this is a book about a history of racism and bigotry in Ohio. It's supposed to cover all the way up until the 90s. So I'm going to look to see if any of the studies in here have familiar names. Well, that's the end of this video. I'm going to go and see folks up at the meeting tonight. Tuesday, I'm going to be up at the Village of Ada's offices at 6 p.m. That's when the new officers are sworn in and getting their assignments. And then I'm assuming the meeting starts at 6:20. I am certainly hoping that 2026, the new group will be insisting on transparency. When I ask for the information for 2025, water consumption and revenue, I'm going to see if they give it to me. My guess, it's two possibilities. One, they're going to give it to me because I can't seem to find anybody to care that they could be saving money and that the residents are paying for the business's water, or a portion of it anyway. I didn't find anybody to care. I'm hoping the new group. His first name is Xander. Don't know what his last name is, but he ran as an independent and he won too. I have hopes. Well, this turned out to be a half hour long, so I'm not going to be able to condense it for the meeting. I'm going to have to do something different. But that is my review of the things that I've had said and done with the people at the Village of Ada. I'm hoping 2026 is a better year. I'm hoping the new people are more transparent and more open. I hope that they want to start recording meetings so nobody can claim that they weren't there. Because if you say there was a meeting, but you have no verifiable information that there was a meeting, I can rightfully say, I think that could be a lie. There might not have been any meeting. Our world is getting a little uglier. A lot of people are lying. There is actual legislators, Jim Jordan, who has argued that people have the right to lie. It is protected speech. They are allowed to publish lies on social media. I seek the truth. And I'm hoping that the new folks at the Village of Ada are more interested in accountability and transparency and want to be on the record for all the work they do for the village. Again, only a dishonest person does not want to be recorded. I'll repeat that again. Dishonest people don't want to be recorded. We'll see what happens tonight. Come see if I make it. Have a wonderful day.